I love flavoring commander decks. It's why I don't like using shapeshifters. I love building dumb typal decks, and it's probably why I lose so many games. But I have fun. Building decks around a theme while also trying to make them as competitive as possible is a great challenge. And with the success of Universes Beyond, there has been a lot of fun flavor to dive into. From my 3 custom Lord of the Rings decks, to a Celestial Toymaker Choices deck, to my big dumb giant typal deck that is just waiting for Wizards to finally print the perfect Naiad Giant. I just love games that are a little bit different and let you see a whole bunch of new cards. So when ACR was announced and Ezio Auditore was printed, I was having a blast brewing ideas up. It helps that my beautiful fiance is a massive Assassin's Creed nerd, so we've had a lot of fun looking at these cards together. I was a little disappointed that there weren't commander decks with this UB set, and to be honest, I don't know how I feel about 7-card boosters, especially with their inflated Australian prices. But my brain still went burr, and my Moxfield account quickly had a new deck in it. This is my Commander Precon using only ACR cards. Hey, Future Tom here. I realized in the edit that I kept saying Precon instead of just Commander Deck, which is what I meant. This is just a thematic Commander Deck built out of only ACR cards, so I apologize for that, and keep it in mind to enjoy the video. We're running Ezio Auditore da Firenze as our commander, so this is a 5-color deck, which is where we run into our first big problem. The main focus of this deck is easy: get value from assassins, cast some cheaply with Ezio's first ability, and then end out the game with a big Wooburg splash when our assassins have already done their job and gotten our opponents down to a quarter health. But as this isn't a commander-focused set, there isn't really the cards needed to ramp, cycle, and support a 5-color mana base. If you're only wanting to build with ACR cards, there is 1 ramp spell and 1 4-cost mana rock. So I'm going to be including 2 deck lists in the description down below. One with only ACR cards, and that's what we'll be talking about today, and one with a few commander staples that I feel should have had a printing in ACR because I love the idea of a beautiful Isu Sol Ring, a command tower with a sync point above Firenze, or a Farseek with art from the Crossroads area of AC2. This deck is focused on assassins and the work they can do, a few support cards around them, and an equipment and mill sub-theme. The nice part about Ezio is we can use him to get some expensive assassins out early, and then if he gets removed, we can just wait for the right time to get a quick hit in. Even with command attacks, he's only going to be 4 or 6 mana. In an absolute flavor win, Altair is my favorite card in this deck. I love the idea of the memory of other assassins making us more powerful. It leads to an explosive board state and combos incredibly nicely with the Animus for extra memory counters. It's an amazing representation of the bleeding effect from the games, and with 22 of our 27 creatures being legendary, there's always going to be options for the Animus, especially when we can use Sean and Rebecca to tutor it up straight onto the battlefield. Though unfortunately, exiling our creatures for it does lead to the bleeding effect card itself not being as effective, but it's still a good card to include. What really makes this deck viable is just how many cards in this set give you card draw. Not only will you be able to cycle through your deck, hit your land drops and find your answers, discarding a card here and there still helps us out. The Adestria will draw us a card if we crew it with an assassin, which all but one creature in this deck is, plus it becomes a 4/3 assassin with Island Walk, which is pretty great. Basim is a 2-drop that will get bigger on combat and draw us a card whenever we cast a historic spell, which is 40 of the cards in this deck, not counting himself. Merciless Harlequin is the classic 2-drop take a life draw a card. Ezio 2 Blade of Vengeance Electric Boogaloo will draw us a card whenever an assassin deals damage to a player, which is insanely strong, but doubled up with the fact that we can tutor for him with Auditory Ambush, which is also a removal spell, is beautiful. Cassandra tutors up the Spear of Leonidas that is going to help us draw cards, but also give our creatures double strike or even make us a cute little horse token. Escarpment Fortress is a little expensive, but it's both a buff and card draw, so it's well worth it. And Evie Fry not only helps us tutoring up her brother, but also gives us some card draw discard, and then an unblockable creature. And that's just the creatures. Coastal Piracy is another draw on combat damage effect, and Eagle Vision is an easy 2-mana draw 3. I've also tagged the Aesir Escape Valhalla as a card draw when it's really just card advantage and recursion. It'll gain us life, make a creature bigger, and then recur itself and the card we exiled so we can do it all over again. This deck definitely needs more graveyard recursion, and this is a good start. And to help us on our way with recursion, we've got the Ballad of the Black Flag. It'll mill us 9 cards, return 3, and then make 40 of our historic spells cheaper. Achilles Davenport, Arno Dorian, and Bayek are all going to buff our assassins. Brotherhood Spy will nearly always be unblockable. Desmond will get very big, and then both he and Lydia will help us surveil through our deck to make sure things are just where we need them to be. Once we've done that, Layla is going to help us bring the good stuff back, and Jacob Fry is going to be doing the same, but he only does it one time. Young Ezio and Evelyn are gonna get some counters on things, and Ratanekteon and Aya will make some extra assassins. He also gets into our equipment sub-theme with some more recursion. Bureau Headmaster will help us use more equipment more often, and Ivor Battle Ready is going to use all of our equipment to blast everybody at the table. And they can be tutored too. Raven Warclan Axe is a simple buff, but it helps us search out Ivor if we're ready with a lot of equipment. Sword of Feast and Famine and Light and Shadow are just amazing value, even if they are a little expensive. Hidden Blade doubles as both equipment and a killer combat trick. Head Splitter is a nice cheap artifact while also making us an assassin, and Hidden Footblade gives us some sorely needed haste. Caduceus is honestly insane. Lifelink +5/+5 and indestructible. Along with Excalibur, this can be great options for ending out the game or focusing on commander damage. Excalibur should be pretty cheap, or even free most of the time. We round things out with Mjolnir, which depending on when you cast it, could end a few games on its own. And for fun, we've included Battlefield Improvisation because I can't resist the idea of dropping Ezio, giving him haste, equipping a ton of stuff, and then rounding out the game in one fell swoop. To protect all of this and our creatures, we've got Haystack and Smoke Bomb. Out of all of these cards in ACR, I can see Haystack making the biggest splash. Good protection is invaluable, and the ability to use it over and over again is amazing. For our own suite of things people need better protection for, we've got a lot of good options. This is all I've included from ACR, but this set was pretty heavy with spot removal. Assassin's Trophy is great because the flavor is too good, and it's just an amazing card. Mortify because we need enchantment removal. Path to Exile because it's cheap and does a lot of good work, and then finally the Revelations of Ezio, its removal, into a buff, into Graveyard Recursion for just 3 mana. We've also got a few board wipes for when spot removal just isn't enough. Fall of the First Civilization starts out with some card draw, turns into spot removal, and then wipes the board. Once again, these 3 mana sagas are pretty great. What Must Be Done technically has a second option, but unless somebody else has just wiped, I think we're always going to hold this up for the right time, and Desynchronization could end up being a very powerful one-sided board wipe if we play it at the right time. Ramp is where we're sorely lacking. In a 5-color deck, I'd usually love to run a lot more, but let's do what we can. Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass is the only mana rock available, and it is 4 mana. But it does give us the ability to cast historic spells from the top of our library, so that's something. Edward is hopefully making us a lot of treasure, but his second ability isn't really going to hit very often. He is definitely a fun commander to build in his own right. Ivor is expensive, but will hopefully hit us on something good with their mill, and Viewpoint Synchronization is actually a pretty great ramp spell. It's easily going to be cast for 3 instead of 5, and it hits 3 lands to get us on track for Wooburg. It's one of the many cards in this deck that have an alternate or reduced cost, the best of which is definitely the capital-only triad. This card could end up being very cheap or even free, and gives us an amazing emblem that should be able to round out the game if we can swing in with an army of 9 9s. But hey, if we can't, we've got a few other cards that should be able to get us closer to winning. Propaganda. I hate to see it, but I love to cast it. If we need a stall for Wooburg, this is going to help us wait it out. Black Market Connections is a much appreciated reprint, and while I personally dislike shapeshifters for flavor reasons, everything about this card is going to help us win games. Rooftop Bypass will help us get a bigger army very quickly. And once we do, Overpowering Attack is a 3 mana extra combat step spell. And if we can't use that, we can just take a whole second turn with Temporal Trespass. If we really can't build a big army, then Cover of Darkness will hopefully be enough to sneak through for a few good hits. Now, lands. It's hard. I really wish they'd printed some sort of good dual land into this set, preferably the Battle Bond lands that need to be reprinted into the sun anyway, but we're going to make do with what we can for flavor reasons. Both Abstergo Entertainment and Brotherhood Headquarters are easy includes, but honestly, if you're building this deck, follow my usual advice. Build the best land package that you can for the money you're putting into this. The mana value of this deck skews pretty low, but it does swing a little bit towards white, black, and blue, so just keep those things in mind. So that's my Assassin's Creed Commander Precon. I've had a lot of fun testing this virtually, and I'm pretty keen to put it together once the set releases. More likely Beck's gonna put it together and then stomp me with it. Both of the card lists are down below, so let me know what you're thinking of building, or what you're looking forward to in general with ACR. While you're down there, let me know if you want more deck tech videos like this. My name's Tom from Nerds of the West, and I'll catch you next time.